We're all set.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the 8th session of Education USA's LLM webinar series. Today's topic is going to be differences between a JD and an LLM degree. And the reps are also going to talk about the practical work experience that you can secure during an LLM program, right? So a lot of interesting information coming our way. And just before we start, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Marta Piñeros. I am the Education USA advisor in Valparaiso, Chile. And for those of you who don't know us, Education USA is a program of the Department of State, and we have over 400 offices worldwide where we work with students who are interested in applying to US universities and help them find their best fit. So hopefully all of you today will find some good information that will help you find your best fit at an LLM program. After the initial presentation, there will be breakout rooms, and we're going to be putting links in the chat so that you have access to the breakout rooms. Please copy all of the links, because once we end this part of the presentation, those links are going to disappear. Okay, so once we put the links in the chat, just copy them so that you have access to them later and can go into the different breakout rooms and speak to the different schools. Okay, so just so you know who's joining us today, we have the University of California, Hastings Law, the University of Miami School of Law, University of Michigan Law School, the University of Virginia School of Law, and Wake Forest University School of Law. Okay, and they will be introducing themselves to you as the presentation progresses. I'll come back at the end, but for now I'm going to mute myself and hand it over to the representatives.
Thank you, Martha. So hi, everyone. My name is Amber. I'm with Wake Forest University, and as Martha mentioned, we're going to go through lots of information today about the differences between whether you as a student should do an LLM or a Juris Doctor program here in the United States. And throughout the session tonight, these are kind of the things that we want to talk about: the differences, the timelines, what it looks like to be an LLM student versus how long it may take you to be a JD student. What is experiential education? What does that mean? And how do you get involved? And why should you get involved? And then also being a part of your law school, and then we'll start thinking about after your program and your opportunities to work after graduation here in the United States. So to get us going, I am going to hand this over to Teresa.
Great, thank you so much, Amber, and welcome to everybody. Thank you all for taking the time today to join us and learn a little bit about legal education in the U.S. I applaud your curiosity and ambition, and I hope that today's presentation will give you the information that you need. So I'm Teresa Kaiser-Jarvis, Assistant Dean for International Affairs at the University of Michigan Law School. So I'm going to talk today about the basic differences between the JD and the LLM degree. Now, the JD degree and the LLM degree are the two most common law degrees offered in the United States, and the choice you have is which one is right for you. So we'll give you some basic information today that hopefully will help you make that decision. So let's talk about the JD degree first. The American Bar Association, or the ABA, is the organization in the United States that accredits law school legal education. So there are 203 fully accredited law schools in the United States. All 203 of those schools will offer a Juris Doctorate degree, the JD degree. The JD degree is the most commonly conferred law degree in the United States. So it is for people who want to practice law permanently in the US, or people who want to teach law in the United States. So it's the standard degree that a US attorney or a US law professor will have. The degree is structured in a 3-year format. I won't go into too much detail because I know my colleague Carmen's going to talk a bit about that, but I want to just point out that typically the first year of your course of study will be required courses, and then you'll have 2 more years of elective courses. It is expensive. That 120,000 US to about 180,000 US dollars will be the cost for the full 3 years, but that's just the tuition. So it doesn't include living expenses and all that. I know that seems like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but there are lots of scholarships available. So don't be deterred by the price tag. And I'm going to actually say this for both the JD program and the LLM program. There are scholarships available. So you should always go ahead and apply, see what offer you get, and maybe it will be an affordable degree for you. When it comes to the entry requirements and what you need to do to be admitted to a JD degree program, again, I think Carmen's going to talk a little bit about this, but I'm going to mention one thing in this list, which is the LSAT score. So the LSAT or the LSAT is a standardized exam that is only made for people wanting to enter into a JD degree program in the United States. So you do have to take, most likely you have to take that exam at the university in order to be admitted. All right, that's the JD degree. Now let's talk a little bit about the LLM degree. I mentioned there were 203 law schools in the United States. Of those 203 accredited law schools, 162 of them offer an LLM degree. Now, the thing to know about an LLM degree is there are no overall national standards about what an LLM degree needs to be. And I say that to let you know that every LLM degree offered at every one of those 162 law schools is unique, is different. So I really encourage you to explore many of them because you can't even imagine the variety, and the key is to find the one that suits you best. So look into the details of each one. All right, let's talk a little bit about what that LLM program looks like. It's really designed for people who want to understand the U.S. legal system and the U.S. approach to law and legal reasoning. Now, the majority of people in an LLM program typically are not U.S. People, not people who want to, usually the U.S. students are getting the JD degree. So most of the people in an LLM program typically are from outside of the United States. They're coming often from a civil law system. They want to learn the common law. As I'm sure you know, the common law system is one that is very vibrant and changes often. So U.S. law schools will pride themselves on saying that they're often here not to teach you what to think, but to teach you how to think. It's likely going to be quite a different experience than what you've had in the law school, in the legal education that you've had up to this point. Likewise, another reason for doing an LLM in the U.S. is to experience U.S.-style legal education. It's very interactive. It's very dynamic. The professors will ask you questions. You're allowed to ask the professor questions back and, in fact, to challenge their ideas. You have to do reading in advance, and you play with the ideas from the readings that you've done beforehand. So it's a really exciting way to learn to be an analytical thinker and an excellent representative of your clients. Another advantage of an LLM program is the ability to build networks of people, personal networks and professional networks that will last your lifetime. These will provide the foundation for a lot of opportunities that you will have throughout your career. So your networks will be the other students in your LLM program, so ideally students from around the world. Likewise, your networks will become U.S. students who are in the JD program. So you will now have the access to lots of different ideas, perspectives, resources, and ability to really enrich your thinking and your experience as a lawyer. In some countries, it just matters that you have an LLM degree. It's a credential that's needed in order for you to progress in your career in your home country. So sometimes people get an LLM degree just for that reason. Likewise, you can follow a course of study at your law school that will allow you to take a bar exam in the United States if you want to. And I think Carmen's going to talk a little bit more about that as well. And finally, another reason for taking an LLM degree in the U.S. is if you want to stay in the U.S. and practice as a lawyer. And if you notice, I put a big asterisk by that, and there's a reason. I don't want you to think that that is an easy segue from graduation date in the U.S., right? There's a lot of work, a little bit of luck. You have to be very flexible. It can happen, but it's not easy. Amber's going to talk a little bit more about the job prospects after you complete an LLM degree. In order to enter an LLM program in the U.S., you'll see those requirements are quite similar to what's required to enter the JD program. What you'll see that's missing from that list is the LSAT. So that standardized exam, that LSAT, is not required for LLM students. The rationale being that the LSAT is meant to gauge how strong of a law student you will be. You as LLM students will already have a law degree, so we already know how strong of a law student you are based on the legal education that you have already completed. All right, and as far as how the LLM program is structured, normally it takes place just in 1 year. I really just want to emphasize that their requirements can vary significantly from school to school, and even within schools, as they have different programs, right? Some schools will have a lot more required courses that you have to take. Others will have almost no courses that you have to take. So again, really take the time to explore and find the program that suits your needs, your personality, your style, and the way that will help you achieve the goals that you want. The cost for an LLM program is that 1 year of study it's approximately $40,000 to $60,000 US. Again, that's just for the tuition, so living expenses on top of it. Again, there are a fair number of scholarships available, so don't be deterred by that big number. Apply and see what your offers are, and then you can make the best decision for you. So thanks for that, and I will turn the presentation over to Carmen.
Thank you so much, Teresa. And my name again is Carmen Perez-Yorca. I am Assistant Dean of International and Graduate Programs at the University of Miami School of Law. I am delighted to be here this evening. I'd like to start by thanking Education USA for organizing this wonderful session, and of course, thanking also all of our participants for being here today. I will be speaking about the timeline for a JD program and the timeline for an LLM program. So the 2 degrees that we've already been discussing during this session, I will explain what the timeline for each of them is. I will start with the JD degree, the Juris Doctor degree, and I will start talking about the timeline for a US student, for somebody who's getting their education here in the US. So unlike in actually most countries around the world, legal education in the US is a graduate degree. In order to get a Juris Doctor degree, in order to get a law degree that allows a student to take the bar exam and practice law in the US, they first need to get a bachelor's degree, an undergraduate degree. So that typically takes 4 years, and they can get a degree in anything that they want. It doesn't have to be anything related to legal studies. They can graduate with a bachelor's degree, with a major in philosophy or in a language or in anything that they want. After the graduate degree, they can then apply to law school. Now, the Juris Doctor degree will take 3 years for most students. As Teresa said, during the first year, students will be taking all of the mandatory foundational courses, and during the second and third year, they will be taking upper-level elective courses. Now, what happens if one of you has a law degree from your home country and you want to get a Juris Doctor degree in the US? If you have a law degree, the schools that you're applying to may be able to give you advanced standing credits for the courses that you took during your law degree in your home country. Now, the maximum number of advanced standing credits that a law school in the US is allowed to give, according to ABA rules, is 1/3 of the credits that you need for your JD. What that means is that if the school gives you the maximum number of advanced standing credits, you will be able to graduate with a JD in only 2 years. Now, after the 4 years of an undergraduate degree and the 3 years of the Juris Doctor, students can then graduate, take the bar exam, and of course, with a Juris Doctor, you would be able to take the bar exam in any state in the US. You can also meet, or you have to meet, all the other admissions requirements, and then you're admitted to practice. So to finish this slide, it would take 4 years for the undergraduate degree, 3 years for the Juris Doctor, 2 years for those students who have a law degree in their home country and get the maximum number of advanced standing credits. Let's look at the LLM now. So LLM students are students who already have a law degree in their country of origin. The duration of the degree will depend, of course, in the country where you went to law school. In most countries, it takes 4 to 5 years. Once you have graduated from law school in your home country, you can then apply to the LLM. Most LLMs, as Teresa indicated, are 1-year degrees. So in only 1 year, students will be able to graduate with an LLM and take the bar in a small number of states in the US that allow foreign lawyers with an LLM to sit for the bar. After complying with other admissions requirements, you may then be able to practice law in the US. So I think this finishes my part of the presentation, and I'll give the virtual mic over to the next speaker, which is Ashley.
Thanks so much, Carmen. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this evening. My name is Ashley McDonald, and I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Program Enrollment at University of California, Hastings Law. UC Hastings Law is in San Francisco, California, and you can see the contact details there. Today, I am going to talk to you about one of the opportunities that you have to get involved during your time in either an LLM or JD program at any of our law schools, and that's a clinic. So some of you may be familiar with clinics, other people maybe have never heard of them or been involved in one before, but clinics are really cool opportunities on our campuses, and they're basically like a mini law office, and students can get involved in them to earn academic credit, and you will basically work as a lawyer would in those clinics for your time when you're in them by earning credit and working on real legal cases, which is really fun and exciting work. And you work with clinical professors or faculty who are experts in those areas of clinics. Clinics are divided into different topics, basically. And these clinics provide free or pro bono legal services to clients usually. So you get to work with real clients on real legal cases, doing real work. So it's a really great opportunity for you to get involved. So when you're in a clinic, what you do will could vary greatly. As I mentioned, there's a ton of different areas that clinics work in. So the topic area of your clinic might also dictate some of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. But the work that you do could include meeting with clients or businesses and even representing them. In some states in the United States, it is allowed to have students working in clinics represent clients in court, for example, as long as you have your clinical professors with you. So there are opportunities for that. You would interview witnesses potentially. You can negotiate with opposing counsel and get that feel of what it's like to be a lawyer or an attorney representing someone and working with other attorneys. You would conduct research on policy or legislative matters. Of course, writing is also a big component of that. So these are just a few ways that you would get your hands kind of dirty in the legal field in a clinic. So what types of clinics are there? I've mentioned already there's a million different types you can be in with a different focus area. So the ones listed here, these are not comprehensive of all clinic types in the United States, but these are clinics that all 5 of our universities have to offer. We don't offer every single one at each, but comprehensively, this is what we would offer. And as you can see, it ranges from things like civil rights or human rights, wrongful conviction. You could get involved in business law, technology and IP, work and labor, journalism. There's a ton of different areas that you can be involved in. And the way that you get involved can also vary campus to campus. Usually, as I understand, for the most part, it's part of, you might have to apply for a clinic if it's really popular. Others, you might be able to just kind of sign up for them. Some of them might be a competitive clinic where there's tons of students who want to get involved in it, but you will receive academic credit. So then you would basically sign up for it almost like a class as well. And usually, sometimes there might be a class component depending on the clinic too. Great. So if anything I said sounds interesting to you, which I hope it does, you should also think about some of the benefits that you get from working in a clinic. So some of you may be attorneys already and practicing law, and others of you may be newer or still finishing your first degree in law, and that's fine. Clinics are a great way to get experience in the legal field, whether you have years of experience as an attorney or you are newer in your legal career. You can always still grow professionally, and that's a great reason to get involved in a clinic. And on top of that, if you come to the US and do your JD or LLM, then you can also get hands-on experience applying law in the US system, which could be very different than what you're used to. And you would also get to see those kind of similarities and differences in the legal system. Just another thing about clinics I want to make sure I mention is that you might want to do a clinic in your specific area, but you find something close to it or something else that really interests you, and you're still going to get that great legal experience and build your professional skills. So there's nothing wrong with also kind of trying something new and seeing if that legal area is of interest to you in the clinic. You'll have the experience to work with clients. As I mentioned, a lot of the clinics are pro bono or free, which means that the clients you work with are people who might not otherwise have access to legal services because they're quite expensive. So it's a great way to work with clients and see the real world impact that you would have with them or with businesses that you're working with as an attorney. And you get to work side by side with leading professors and clinical professors in areas that they're very knowledgeable in, and really get some great experience learning from them, along with developing all of the legal skills. So I hope you consider a clinic. These are all of the different clinic websites for our 5 institutions. Mostly if you go to the law page for our university and just search for clinic, or it's pretty easy to find them, but you can learn more about all of the details of our clinics on our website. And now I'm going to pass it over to Adriana.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And I want to say thank you to Education USA for putting this together, and also say thank you to everybody who joined us this evening and my co-panelists, my colleagues. It's wonderful to be presenting this with the wonderful set of ladies we have together today. My name is Adriana Vito, and I work for the University of Virginia School of Law. I am an assistant dean for graduate studies. I take care of the LLM program, the SJD program, and the visiting scholars program, which all of these 3 programs attract a lot of international students to our campus. We are located in Charlottesville, Virginia. It's about 2 hours from Washington, D.C., and 1 hour from Richmond, which is the capital of Virginia. The school was founded by Thomas Jefferson, and it is a historical site. I encourage everybody to visit if you happen to come to the United States. I will be presenting today about externships. This is a topic that is very close to my heart. I came here myself as an LLM 20 years ago, and then I became a career counselor for LLMs after being in practice for a while. And I never looked back, and I love helping my LLMs be able to find the right career opportunities, and internships and externships is something that I've done for a very long time in advising and helping students find those opportunities. So it's a pleasure to be talking about this today with you. So first of all, for a foreign student, an international student, it's usually puzzling, the name externship. It doesn't necessarily mean much. They are not really sure what it means. So I'm going to start by demystifying, if you will, the word for you. What is an externship? What does it mean when we say externship? And what are the differences between externships and internships? So in essence, externships and internships are ways for you to receive practical experience, for you to learn in practice, to put in practice what you've been learning in the classroom. The main difference between an externship and an internship is that externships, you receive academic credits. So through an externship, you will be receiving maybe 1, 2, or 3 credits, depending on how many hours of work you put in that particular semester. And the internships are usually done without receiving any credit. So that's the main component of it. Because the internship, because the externship allows you to receive academic credit, there is a little bit more involvement of the school in the work that you're doing as an extern in a legal practice, whether it's a law firm, whether it's an NGO, whether it's a corporation, anywhere where you may be learning in practice what you are learning in the classroom, putting in practice what you're learning in the classroom. So what do I mean by a little more control? The school, the student, and the employer usually sign an agreement, and the agreement basically will specify that the student is supposed to be doing legal work. And this in a way helps you because it guarantees that you're not going to be the intern making coffee for other attorneys. You're actually going to be engaged or making copies or coffee or all those important tasks that also go on in a law firm. Basically, by doing an externship, you're being supervised by somebody at the school who's also looking over what you are doing and making sure that the hours you're putting in, where you're going to get your academic credit from, are meaningful hours of work that you're learning legal material, that you're learning legal practice. So that's one of the big differences, where there's a little bit of more control, if you will. Also, some schools will allow you to do an externship without being engaged in what we call an externship seminar, and most schools will require you to be taking an externship seminar together with the work that you're doing in the legal profession, in the law firm or NGO or legal department of a corporation or a company. And by signing up for this externship seminar, you are committing to participating fully in the course. Usually we'll meet with other students a couple of sessions a semester, and through getting a passing grade in that externship seminar, you will gain your credits, you earn the credits that you signed up for through the externship. That means that when you're receiving academic credit for legal work, you have to pay for those credits, right? You have to register for those credits and you'll be paying for those credits. In schools where being a full-time student will give you a flat fee, this would not be an additional cost. So if you're doing an externship during the fall or the spring, it will be the same cost as the credits are already included in the tuition that you paid for the semester. In some schools, like some schools I've worked with in the past, if the student is doing an externship during the summer, they would have to pay separately for those credits. So some of my students would raise the question that you see on the slide, which is the last point in this slide, that says, oh, I'm paying for work. That's a little strange. Like, I thought I would be paid to work, not paying for, doing work. But in order to gain those credits, to earn those credits, you will have to register as if you're registering for a class, and the school will charge you for that. So there are advantages and disadvantages to doing externships. Ready for the next slide. So when I talk about advantages and disadvantages, one thing that I like to alert students doing, specifically the LLM program, if you're going into an LLM that is only 9 months, we usually start the LLM in August and we finish in May. Students start in August and graduate in May. It's a very short period of time to put a lot of things that you want to do in those 9 months. So the first thing I put here is if you consider gaining experience during your degree, for you to be careful in planning the credits and making sure you talk to your academic advisor and making sure that those credits that you're earning experience through are carefully included in your academic plan, and that you're not missing out on anything else academic that can only be done during the degree by actually dedicating a few credits to the externship. And then I put here gaining practical experience during the fall, spring, and summer. This is an option that the JD students mostly have. For the LLMs, we usually tend to restrict externship in the first semester. The schools that allow you to do externships, they will tell you, please try not to do that the first semester that you're here, because we want to see how you're going to be doing in your studies. If you do extremely well, if you're managing all the readings, if you're not falling behind on your classes, if you have good grades, then maybe you would consider an externship on your second semester of your LLM. And some schools will even allow you to walk the stage, quote unquote, in May and do the externship in the summer, which is the case that I've been seen in the past. In addition to that consideration, because you want to make sure that you're doing well academically, that your grades are not suffering, some of you may be thinking about taking the bar exam and fitting in all the academic requirements for the LLM, which is usually between 24 to 26 credits for you to graduate. I did an LLM that actually had 30 credits, and it was a lot to fit in. So depending on how many credits you decide to do, and fitting in those academic requirements, the bar studies, and the practical experience all together in 9 months may be too much. So that's why we're doing a comparison of the JD and the LLM. For the JDs, you have, pretty much more freedom in terms of the 3 years is a more extended degree, so you can fit in the credits for an externship. For the LLMs, you really have to be careful, since 24, 26 degrees is not a very big amount of credits when it comes to dedicating them to what you want to study and specialize in and all of that. Last but not least, anytime an international student who is a foreign citizen, meaning he or she is not a citizen of the United States and may not have the legal permanent residency here, which most commonly known as the green card. If you're here on a student visa or even on a J1 visa, you may want to check with your school advisor first before accepting any offer for work, whether it's an externship or whether it's an internship or if you're volunteering. There are restrictions in terms of visa categories and work outside of the campus where you're studying. So anytime you plan to accept a work opportunity, I would say check with what we call the DSO, which is the designated school official. So every school in the United States, every campus will have somebody who is responsible for the immigration rules on campus. And that's the same person that usually issues your I-20, which is the document that you take to the consulate in order to obtain your visa. So that person would be the expert to tell you if the internship, externship, or any other type of work opportunity you are receiving an offer for complies with the parameters of your visa. I could do a whole 3-hour presentation just about the visa implications of work outside of the campus. I will not do that here since we don't have enough time. But I just wanted to put this little point out there for you. If you plan to work off campus and you are an international student, please make sure that you are following the rules and to know that the best way is to talk to your advisor on campus. So ready for the next slide. Thank you. I'm also going to be talking to you about extracurricular activities. And this is also one of my favorite topics because it's something that in my country, when I was a student back home in Brazil, this is not something that the law schools in my country emphasized as much. And I noticed that in the United States, this is a big one. People like to see extracurricular activities in your resume, in your CV afterwards. And when I came here as a student more than 20 years ago, longer than I wish to admit, I thought it was interesting. I thought, how come people valued this here so much? And back home, it was not even a thing. Like people just would do whatever they felt like, but it wasn't a planned, carefully designed type of experience. So extracurricular activities are pretty much the activities that you do that are connected to the legal profession and to developing yourself as an attorney or a researcher, but they are not required as part of your journey in earning your credits and curriculum, requirements for your degree. So these are things that you volunteer. These are activities that you may volunteer to want to do. It's not required. So if you don't do them, you're still probably going to graduate just fine. And the reason, and this is my own interpretation of it, the reason I feel employers and the legal market in general in the United States, they value this so much is because they know, the employers know that the time that you dedicated to any of these activities could have been dedicated to leisure time for yourself. You could have been at the beach, you could have been skiing, you could have been in the swimming pool, but you actually chose to not do those things and apply the free time that you had during the week or on the weekends to these other activities that we call extracurricular activities. And that is valuable because it shows that you have a passion for what you're studying, you have a passion to developing yourself as an attorney or a researcher, later to become a professor, a teacher. And it really shows that you have commitment to the profession and the field that you chose to specialize in, right? So what are these and how can you engage in them, and is it valuable to do, and is it worth your time, so to speak? So I put some examples here. By all means, this definitely has an etc. at the end of the sentence because there are other things that I may have forgotten to put in here. So we're talking about engaging with student organizations. So we will see student organizations that are based on affinity groups. You have the Asian Students Association, the Latin American Students Association. You also have the Contract Attorneys Association, and all of these will be affinity groups that you can engage in, and you can become a spokesperson for the organization. You can be the person on the board of the leader, and that shows leadership, right? So whether you run for president or vice president or treasurer, all these organizations show that you got involved and you are demonstrating leadership skills within the community. Moot court competitions would be very much a simulated trial, And I know that most countries, you would have that back home in your law school. My point of reference would be my own country, where these were offered. They were not very competitive to get in. Anybody could pretty much volunteer to do. But because in the United States, it's actually really competitive to get into a moot court competition, whenever somebody looks at your resume coming from a different country, they automatically assume in the United States that you went through that huge competition to do moot court in your country too. And sometimes that's not the case. But if you've done a simulated trial, right, we encourage you to show that and put it in your resume. And during your LLM, if your school allows you to participate, definitely during the GD, you have plenty of opportunities to do that. We encourage students to take part in that, because it demonstrates that you want to develop your skills as a debater and arguing cases in front of a crowd, right? Also, publications is something I always encourage my LLMs to take part in if they can. And again, you could have been in the swimming pool, you could have been in the beach, but you decided to do the research and actually take the time to produce a publishable quality paper. And the market will reward you for that. Not necessarily monetarily right away, but it will give you a certain seniority and a step above other lawyers who may not have taken the time to do that, if you can show that you have publications in your resume. And there are plenty of opportunities to publish. All it takes is for you to understand how libraries work in the United States in the law schools. You always have a research librarian, reference librarian. These people have JD degrees, they are lawyers, they help you with research, and they can help you put forward a good publication. If you produced a good publishable quality paper, always talk to the librarians and say, how do you think I can propose these papers to, journals, newsletters, other publications outside? Speaking engagements are also great to promote student leadership. If anybody invites you to do a presentation about the legal system in your own country, if they don't invite you, you can create the presentation yourself and just invite people to attend. I feel that those are great ways to portray yourself as an expert in a certain field or area of expertise. Volunteer work, media appearances, blogs, this generation definitely has a lot more in terms of how you can engage with the public and how you can be an expert in a certain field. So extracurricular activities will demonstrate that you are dedicated to a particular area of law that you like. And through blogging and speaking about it and publishing and maybe being part of a student organization, you will prove to the world that, look, I'm committed to this. I like international trade law, or I like contracts, or I like criminal law, or whatever it is that you're interested in, right? About the perception in United States and other countries, I brushed over that in the beginning of the presentation. It's definitely valued in the United States, even though it may sound a little weird depending on the country you come from. Maybe in your country, this wasn't even talked about. Here, we value it quite a bit, including in the admission stage for law school and for an LLM program. I feel that a lot of the students who demonstrate leadership, at least for UVA, we really look at that. We want to see that you participated, that you came out of the crowd and stood out from the crowd as a leader. And last but not least, because I'm always watching out for your grades. If you were my student, you're going to hear me say this all the time. It is important to graduate with a good average in your LLM program or in your JD program. So GPA stands for the grade point average. It's a number that tells employers later how well you did in your degree. This is an important measurement that we use in the United States. Then again, in other countries, it may not be so important when you go get a job, but in the United States it is. So when you're thinking about extracurricular activities or externships or internships or anything that is taking you out of your readings and your studies and your classroom experience, please make sure that you really can fit that in without being overwhelmed. So if at any point these activities are interfering with your performance in class and your grades, I feel that you should prioritize your grades and your performance in the classroom, because in the end of the day, the GPA is a number you'll never be able to change after you graduate. And you can always gain the rest of all these experiences that we're talking about. You can definitely do them after you graduate. The most important thing during your degree is the GPA. For students who are doing really well, have wonderful grades, they're not struggling with all the readings, they're prepared for class, then go for it. Then get the full experience and try to get involved in as many things as possible. And your academic advisor in each of the schools that we have in the United States will have somebody dedicated to talking with you about this and planning and helping you understand what overwhelming feels like and what do you have time for in your schedule and how can you achieve a great GPA and also make sure that you fit all these experiences if you're interested in. We're going into breakout sessions after this. I'm more than happy to talk about these topics with you directly if you participate, and it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much. And with that, I turn it over to Amber. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Adriana. So again, my name is Amber Featherstone. I'm the Director of International and Graduate Programs at Wake Forest University School of Law. We're located in a mid-sized city called Winston-Salem in North Carolina on the East Coast. And so to wrap up our presentation today, we've walked you through, how to decide whether to do an LLM or a JD, and we've talked about the differences in those two programs in terms of admissions and timeline. We've talked about then once you're in your program, how to really get involved in your school to gain really practical experience while you're in that program. So now we're going to think about after you finish your program, right? You've completed the degree and now you're ready to put that degree to use. And so we've all touched on this topic a little bit, but many LLM students come to the United States to either further their career in their home country or perhaps to seek employment in the US. And US law schools, it's very important to them that their graduates are able to find jobs in the areas that they're looking in. And so they have a variety of resources that are available to help students who are looking for jobs within the US or abroad. So just like Adriana was talking about all of those extracurricular things that you can be involved in, law schools will offer a lot when it comes to your career and professional development. So when you're researching schools, you should think about that. You should think about what sort of services a school may offer, especially for LLM students, because some schools have different levels of service depending on whether you're a Juris Doctor or an LLM student. And so that's a question that you should ask. And then, of course, just as you would with the extracurricular activities and helping to build your resume, you should always take advantage of all of the free events and opportunities that schools will have on campus. I know in previous slides we talked about one of the bonuses of doing a program like this in the United States is networking, building your network of legal colleagues that you can count on and communicate with in the future. At Wake, we do various career panels, so you can come meet with Wake lawyers who are now practicing international law to learn about the jobs that they do and how they got into those roles. There are resume workshops teaching you how to take your resume from a format that is probably more common in your country and move it to a US format that legal employers here will be more familiar with. And there's so much more. So this is just another piece of that law school experience in the United States that you'll be able to take advantage of while you're in your program. And then Adriana touched on this briefly, but for most international lawyers who come to the United States, they do need to be on a student visa in order to legally live and study here. And so with that student visa comes some restrictions and some opportunities. Adriana mentioned the restrictions about working while you're in your program. So if you decide to seek employment off campus while you're studying. Optional practical training is an opportunity for students after they complete their program. So every student who completes a degree level in the United States is eligible to apply for OPT, and it can essentially give you up to 12 months of work authorization here in the US. And so most of our students who wish to either take a bar examination and remain in the US so that they can stay through that examination period, or those who are seeking work in the US will apply for optional practical training. Your school, again, your designated school official who works in the visa office at your university will help guide you through this process. It is an external application, so these decisions are adjudicated by the U.S. government. And so there is a chance that you would not be granted the optional practical training work authorization. But those situations are pretty rare, and your school will work with you to make sure that you complete the application correctly and that you meet all of the requirements in order to apply. But the hope is that you would be able to then take advantage of all of these things you've had during your legal studies here in the U.S., all of those experiences, hands-on experiences, networking with U.S. colleagues, and that you could turn that into even more practical experience with an internship or maybe even a full-time position working here in the United States with your new legal knowledge. And so that finishes out our program. Again, on this slide, you'll just see all of our information. And as we've mentioned, we will be moving into the breakout room shortly. And so we hope that you will all come talk with us individually about what our schools can offer you as you're seeking to study law in the United States. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I believe we've had a few questions come in, and we'll hand it off to one of my teammates to see if there's any questions we need to answer.
There we go. I think there's an interesting question that maybe we can all contribute to, but it says, is it rare for international students to get work during the 12 months, to get a job during their OPT time?
So I don't think it's rare. I think it's not guaranteed, right? What I have told students in the past is that the most successful LLMs that I have had success in terms of being able to find a job in the US after they graduate were the ones that were really following the advice we just gave, right? Taking advantage of everything that a law school offered, really attending all of those training sessions and networking events that the Office of Career and Professional Development offered. And then it's a lot of work. They have to go out and really search for the jobs, network for the jobs, but it can be done. But it is 100% not guaranteed. It requires a lot of work and a lot of patience, I think, in order to be successful.
Yeah, and I would just echo that. It's not rare, but it's not easy.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to chime in on the same question. One of the things I've observed that helps for those of you who are in the audience, I think it helps if you have a little bit of experience in practice in your country. I feel that students who have had a little bit of experience, and I'm talking about maybe between 2 to 5 years experience before doing an LLM, it really, really helps if you have context in your industry back home. And the law firms in the United States, the legal employers here, will see you as a client development tool. So when you come with contacts and a little bit of experience, you can be better at helping firms here with client development in your region, in your country, in your culture, with your language. And that's a lot to sell. And so the students who come right after law school with no experience in the market and no contacts usually struggle a lot more to find meaningful OPT, if you will, experiences in a job. So keep in mind that I always tell my students this, law firms are not charity. They're after money from clients. And if you can help them get clients, that's a different conversation, right? So whatever you can do to maximize your chances of being that person for client development, that's great. If you're going into the public sector, more in an NGO type of field, if you have experience in human rights, if you have experience in environmental law in your country, and you can help NGOs working in those regions, definitely that's a huge advantage that you present in terms of language skills, knowing the culture, knowing the problems in your area. I've had environmental attorneys from Brazil who were working in Amazon issues. They found meaningful employment here because of that, but they had experience. So think about the type of experience that MBA programs usually like people to have. It's usually a minimum of 2 years. In my opinion, LLM programs should require that as well, because it would help you in the classroom experience and it would help you present yourself to employers in a more meaningful way. Thank you, ladies.
So Adriana's comments actually segue nicely into Fabiola's question, which is about how important is it to have experience when you're applying to the LLM program. And I won't repeat what Adriana just said, but I want to add to it that it is nice if you have some experience before entering an LLM program, because in addition to the reasons that Adriana just gave, it will help you select your courses and construct your year in the most beneficial way to you. If you have some idea of what you do like or don't like in the study of law and in the practice of law, you will likely know from the beginning what you want to get out of that year. That year goes really fast. And if you don't know until January or February what you're doing or what you like, it's almost over, and you're unlikely to do an LLM more than once. So, make sure that you have a clear idea of why you're doing it, and often work experience before entering the program will help you do that.
I'd like to add something to that, and I agree with everything that's been said, but it is also true that many of our students, at least at the University of Miami, get their LLM immediately after they graduate. And the reason why they do that is because that's the moment in their life when they can do it, right? They're still a student, and they want to come to the US and continue studying law and learn English and be better prepared, get another credential on their resume. So I do agree that ideally you should have some experience if you want to take advantage of your LLM, but you should go and get your LLM whenever you are ready to do that and whenever the opportunity presents itself. So I myself got an LLM right after law school, and I was very young, and I'm sure I would have had a different experience if I had done it a little later. But I had a wonderful experience. It opened my mind and changed my life in very significant ways, and I see the same thing with my students. So again, if you can ideally plan it, then maybe work for 2 to 5 years. But if the moment is right for you right after you graduate, then go ahead and apply.
Carmen's right. Yeah, there's not a standard requirement, and everyone's different. So I see a question on here for Amber. I think for Amber, it says, is the externship and the optional practical training similar? Or what's the difference between an externship and the OPT?
That's a great question. So externships may require work authorization depending on how the work is done and where. But again, an externship is typically done when you're in your program because it's done for credit. So you're getting course credit for that work and for that experience. Optional practical training mostly takes place after you graduate. So again, this is where you've completed your program, you've graduated, you're now studying for the bar exam and looking for jobs, and that's where the optional practical training comes in, because you don't have to be registered for a class to do it. Once you're approved for it, then you're eligible to work full-time in the US for up to those 12 months.
And Adriana, I think there's one here for you, which is, please explain again the difference between an internship and an externship.
That's great. I'm happy to help. So it is confusing because it's essentially the same thing with different nuances. Let's put it that way, right? So in the end of the day, whether you're doing an internship or an externship, you are working as a student somewhere to gain experience, right? The main difference is that the externship allows you to receive academic credit. So in other words, if you work, let's say 180 hours per semester in a law firm, you may gain 2 to 3 credits as academic credits that you can count towards your degree. So the main difference is the internship, you would not receive academic credit. You would receive the experience, you will still go to the law firm, you still work, but it's a little bit less structured because you will not be receiving a grade associated to it or the academic credit. In the externship, most schools that I've seen, they require you to register for what we call externship seminars. So you're doing a seminar, which is a class during the semester together with your work for the employer, and you will receive academic credit. Sometimes if you're doing it as an externship seminar, there are deliverables, we call it. So you will be either writing a paper about your experience, or you'll be coming to class and debating with your classmates about what it is like to be in the workplace. A lot of the externship professors that I've worked with, they do a wonderful thing through the semester, which is to bring practitioners. So sometimes sometimes judges, practicing lawyers, to talk to you about professionalism, about cultural differences in the workplace. Diversity training sometimes goes on in the externship seminars, and I think it's a great idea. So you get a little bit of a fuller experience, if you will, but it is more structured, right? The other thing also, as I mentioned during the presentation, in some schools where I've worked in the past, when they do an externship, they allow you to do an externship, they sign a contract with the employer. So the contract is signed between the employer, the student who's working, and the school. And the reason for that contract is to make sure that the experience you're getting in the field is actually going to be legal and meaningful experience, right? So like I said, if you do an internship without having any type of structure, there are law firms that will feel very free to ask you to make coffee. And, you know, whether it's a medium-sized firm or a small firm, I've worked in a firm before that that was one of the requirements. And this is in Brazil. I mean, again, it wasn't in the United States, but, you know, making coffee was something that was completely normal for the lawyers to ask the interns to do. If you're doing an externship, that usually won't happen because your law school will be supervising what you're doing at that particular employer's workplace, right? So that's the main difference. The main difference is that you're getting credit, and because you're getting credit, you're paying for it, right? So whether it's included in your tuition, fall, spring, and summer, most of the schools I worked for that allowed externships for LLMs in the summer, you would pay per credit, and it is not cheap because it costs the same as a class credit. So the majority of people that I knew would want to do, you know, be paying for a class as opposed to paying to work, right? So if that's what you go with, then what Amber was talking about, which is the OPT opportunity. OPT is the authorization you have to work after graduation. So you may also invest all the time you have in school in gaining your academics basically, and studying and paying for what is a classroom, you know, teaching type of experience, and then leaving the practical experience for after graduation during your OPT time. That's something that is completely doable as well, and you're not going to be missing out on anything. So I hope that answered the question. Thank you, Teresa.
Yeah, Ashley, you want to take this one? It says, I have all of my education in my home country in English. Am I eligible for a waiver of the TOEFL?
That's a great question. So yes and no, maybe. So not such a straightforward answer. Every school will have different requirements for the TOEFL or IELTS or Cambridge test if they accept that. So there are different tests that schools accept, and there are different score requirements for them as well. And who's eligible for a waiver will vary by school as well. Some schools will waive a TOEFL requirement if you have completed a degree at a university whose sole method of teaching instruction is English, or primary method of instruction is in English, or if you've completed a degree, in the United States, for example. So yes, you may qualify, but you would need to follow up with the institutions that you're interested in to get a more specific answer. Yeah.
Great. And being conscious of time, we might be able to squeeze in one more, and I'm not sure who's the right person to answer this. Maybe Carmen, but maybe Amber. Our full scholarships usual, the tuition cost is really expensive.
So full scholarships are unfortunately quite unusual, but partial scholarships are very, very common, and most law schools will offer some tuition relief or a partial scholarship to their international students. Some may have a full scholarship, but if they do, it's going to be very, very competitive. The most important thing to always remind students when talking about scholarships and funding an LLM is give it a try. Apply to a couple of different schools and see what you get, because you might be able, you might be able to get a larger scholarship than you first thought, and also explore other funding options. There are some scholarships that are not given by the schools themselves. There are a lot of government institutions and other institutions that will provide you with scholarship funds in your home country to come and study in the US. And of course, this is something unusual sometimes in countries outside the US, but there's also loans that are available, student loans that are available for you to fund your studies.
Do you want to add anything to that, Amber?
No, I would say the exact
good.
same.
Yeah, I know. It was very thorough, very good. Well, I don't want to, I need to like jump in over the running this, but Marta, I'm guessing you want us to wrap this up since it is the top of the hour.
Yes, just in the interest of you guys having time to go into your breakout rooms, I want to remind all the participants that in the chat is the links to all of the breakout rooms, so that please copy the entire list, because as I said, once you finish this, once we finish this portion, those links are going to disappear. So while I thank everybody, you guys can copy. So thank you very much to all of the reps for a very informative session. I'm not a lawyer, but I feel like I learned a lot during this session, so thank you. You know, maybe in the future. And also to the participants, we hope that you are able to answer a lot of your questions. As we mentioned at the beginning, this is the 8th of 10 sessions, so there are still 2 more to come if you're interested in registering for future events, right? And if you decide after all these wonderful presentations that you want to go ahead and continue with an application to an LLM, I encourage you to reach out to your local Education USA office because we can help you in the process. And also to reach out to the reps at the US universities, because as you've seen here, they are very friendly and they are very approachable and very open to answering your questions. So, you know, reach out to them. And with that, I think we're going to leave it and go ahead and go to the breakout rooms.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. It was a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Marta, come study with us anytime.
Okay, yeah.
Me gustaría
Just
mucho
wait for
tenerla
me.
con nosotros. Mucho gusto.
Ay, muchas gracias.
Gracias por todo. Espero conocerla personalmente cuando podemos viajar nuevamente.
Próximo año.
Próximo
We'll
año.
be here
Mucho
waiting
gusto.
for you
Muchas
with a
gracias
pisco
por
sour.
todo. Gracias por organizarlo. Muchas gracias. Fue maravilloso.
Ya, qué bueno. Gracias.
Cuídate
Cuídese.
mucho. Chao, chao.
Chao.
Gracias.